This month, we've been looking at the fundamental ideas and principles of the science of mind. And our founder, Ernest Holmes, spent a lifetime studying the world's great religions and philosophies, and he found that they had certain universal truths in common. These were the truly important, essential ideas and principles, not the rules and dogmas about which direction you should face when you pray, or what kind of clothing you should or should not wear, or what you can or cannot eat or drink. Jesus spent much of his time teaching that it's what's on the inside that counts, not following a bunch of outward rituals. It's like the priest and the rabbi who had been friends for many years. And one day, the priest said to the rabbi, "There's something I've always wondered. Have you ever tasted ham?" "Well," said the rabbi, "I must admit that when I was very young, I did eat some ham. And now, my friend, something I've always wondered. Have you ever been with a woman?" Well, the priest turned red and said, "Yes, I must confess that when I was very young, before I entered the priesthood, I was with a woman." The rabbi smiled and said, "It's better than ham, isn't it?" Well, this month, our talks are based on the first four chapters of the Science of Mind textbook by Ernest Holmes. So a couple of weeks ago, we kicked things off with the chapter titled The Thing Itself. And this is the study of life and the nature of the laws of mind, what God is and what God is not. Now, the Science of Mind perspective on God is similar to what philosophers call pantheism. That is, the belief that God is everything, and that God and the material world are one and the same, and that God is present in everything. Unlike the ancient Druid belief, however, it's not that trees are God, it's that God is manifesting as trees and everything else. Raymond Charles Barker, one of our great ministers years ago, was at a religious science conference in a beautiful hotel. And one day there was a long line of people waiting to get into a lecture. And Barker overheard one of the hotel guests saying, "See those people over there? Those are the people who think they're God." Well, we don't think we're God, but we know that God is what we're made of. Every one of us, even those that we're not very fond of. It's a little bit like the title of that Walter Starkey book, It's All God, the Flowers and the Fertilizer. Now, the thing itself is the only life there is, and spirit experiences that life by becoming what it imagines. And then last week we looked at how it works. It works through us. More precisely, it works as us. And that means that we were not created in the past tense. It means that we are being created in every moment of every day. And as self-aware, self-conscious beings, we, of all life forms, are granted the power and the privilege to shape the direction of our creation. In our lives, it works by a law of mind, which operates upon our beliefs, turning our beliefs into our reality. And today, we look at the third chapter, what it does. So as a starting point, let's stipulate that if God is everything, then it's safe to say that God does everything. As the only power there is, nothing happens outside the use of this power. What we call good is accomplished through that power, and what we call bad is accomplished through that power. It's all one power, and the use we make of it determines whether we get a positive or negative result. But that's next week's talk. For now, let's consider what it does. People have asked this question for thousands of years. Children, especially, feel free to ask what God does and why. Teacher asked the kids to write letters to God, to ask God a question. Here's just a few of the responses. Dear God, I didn't think orange went with purple until I saw the sunset you made on Tuesday. That was cool. Dear God, are you really invisible? Or is that just a trick? Dear God, instead of letting people die and having to make new ones, why don't you just keep the ones you have now? Dear God, my brother told me about being born, but it doesn't sound right. They're just kidding, aren't they? Dear God, thank you for the baby brother, but what I prayed for was a puppy. Dear God, I bet it's very hard for you to love everybody in the whole world. There are only 4 people in our family, and I can never do it. Well, granter of wishes, creator of sunsets and babies, the ultimate in love, and perhaps the all-time favorite, the big cop in the sky. I heard about a Catholic school where the children were lined up in the cafeteria to be served lunch, and at the head of the table was a large tray of apples. And one of the nuns had written a note and posted it on the tray, which said, "Take only one. God is watching." And at the other end of the table was a big pile of chocolate chip cookies. And a child had written a note and placed it on the tray that said, "Take all you want. God is watching the apples." Well, the sad truth is that most of our adult conceptions of God really aren't that much better. As we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, God can't really be defined because any definition would fall short of the infinite. So we've discussed to the best of our ability the nature of the infinite and how it works, and now it's time to discuss what it does. And here's what Ernest Holmes said about what it does. Very simply, it creates through an open and receptive mind, revealing, inspiring, and empowering. And so, he said, we approach the science of mind rationally, not expecting to get any benefits from it that principle does not contain. What does that mean? Not expecting to get any benefits from it that principle does not contain. Well, basically, it means that principle always works in strict accordance with law. And the law is automatic, it is impersonal. So we will not be able to use the science of mind to help us win the lottery or any other form of gambling. Principle working through law will not allow us to habitually break every rule of healthy living and maintain good health. Spiritual mind treatment, or what we call affirmative prayer, is not a substitute for proper living. It is not an antidote for reckless behavior. It does not reward stupid choices with good results. Now, it does not persuade God to suspend natural laws for our benefit. It may seem at times that God works in mysterious ways, but that's only because we don't know enough to realize that it's not magic. It's cause and effect. It's creative intelligence, fashioning universal energy, always in harmony with spiritual laws. And the mysterious can become understandable with an expanded consciousness. But before mind, universal mind, can reveal its secrets, it must have an outlet. And we must allow that outlet to be ourselves by opening our minds, by becoming receptive, and becoming receptive takes work on our part. What we get from mind, we must draw through the channel of our own minds. And sometimes we must dredge the channel. You know, rivers and ports and harbors must occasionally be dredged to keep waterways open and navigable. Otherwise, they tend to become silted over time. Sediment builds up, making the waters too shallow for navigation. The silt of negative thoughts and emotions can narrow or even clog our channels of receptivity. But regular mindful spiritual practice can open those channels, allowing more of life to flow into and through us. To use a medical analogy, we could say that we need to be mindful of our negative thoughts, our negative beliefs, and our negative emotions because they can cause a spiritual hardening of the arteries or a spiritual plaque buildup. And that prevents proper circulation through the body, the mind, and the spirit. Remember, everything that we call good is the result of circulation, and everything that we call bad is the result of congestion. Spirit can only give us what we can take, and we can take what we like. God is not watching the apples to make sure we only take one. So spirit gives of itself only as we partake of its nature. We can only know God to the degree that we become God. Now, what do I mean by that? Because it sounds vaguely blasphemous. What I mean is that we can only know God to the degree that we become God-like. Give you an example. When I was in elementary school, every other year, I made straight A's on my report cards. The in-between years, I routinely made C's and D's. Drove my parents nuts. Turned out the problem was when I liked the teacher, I would do the work. I became like the teacher. I got inside the teacher's mind. When I didn't like the teacher, I would tune him or her out and I would not do the work. So I got into the teacher's way of thinking. And we can only know God to the degree that we get into a God way of thinking. It's the same with our spiritual life here as it is in school of any kind. We're trying to get in harmony with spiritual principles so we can experience the maximum amount of life, love, light, power, peace, beauty, and joy. And we can become a success in any area of life, a successful shopkeeper, a successful athlete, a successful teacher. But to become a successful person, we must become like God. As Jesus put it, be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. I frequently hear people say, I'm only human. No, you're not only human. That's the world's biggest cop-out. We are human, but we are also divine, spiritual beings having a human experience. And as such, the light of spirit is always shining for us. It's up to us to turn to the light. We spend way too much time standing in the shade. Now, this isn't just some theoretical idea or a feel-good platitude. It's a very practical way to live. I know someone who suffers from depression. And one of the things that seems to help her is walking her dog in the park. And recently, the dog had surgery for quite a few days, couldn't walk, and that left my friend depressed. So my advice was, go to the park and walk without the dog. Get out of the house. Maybe go and volunteer for some social cause or issue. She's interested in such things. And she's read a ton of self-help books, so she knows that she's getting good advice. But is she doing anything about it? Not really. There's light all around her, but she is standing in the shade. The great minds of the ages have sought out the light, but most people have not. And many who have tried to make the mistake of, instead of looking for the light, they look to someone who has seen the light instead of seeking the light itself. It's been said that Jesus pointed the way, and we've spent the last 2,000 years studying his finger. Yes, Jesus was a being of light, but so are we if we choose to be so. The light does not come from complicated rituals or systems or dogmas. Ernest Holmes, addressing this idea, said, "Let us do away ponderosity of thought." What a great phrase. Let us do away with a ponderosity of thought. That's Ernest's ponderosity of verbiage, and approach this thing simply and quietly. It is the nature of the universe to give us what we are able to take. In other words, sometimes we get too sophisticated for our own good. We're always trying to make things more complicated than they are. We're always chasing after the latest guru or the latest theory. The Unity minister, Eric Butterworth, was once asked to deliver a lecture on advanced metaphysics, and his reply was, "There's no such thing as advanced metaphysics. There's just metaphysics. It's not complicated. Even a child can understand it. It's just a matter of doing it." Instead of a ponderosity of thought, we can be living and acting from a place of simple faith. One of the many people who came to Jesus for a healing said after the healing, "Oh, thank you so much." And Jesus responded, "Your faith has made you whole." Not Abraham's faith, not Moses's faith, not Jesus's faith, your faith, the faith of the man or the woman being healed. It doesn't matter who we are or what complex theologies we may hold. God works on the basis of our faith. The universe honors our faith in it. And as I mentioned last week, this has nothing to do with the particular brand of religion or philosophies that we may follow. Faith transcends Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, socialism, or rheumatism, or any other ism. When I was about 10, 11 years old, I had a little nephew who was born with badly deformed ankles. And they put him in iron devices that were supposed to gradually straighten out his feet so he could walk normally. But he was about 2 years old. He was brought down to the altar of that Baptist church in which I was raised. And everybody gathered around and prayed for him. And miraculously, his ankles and his feet started realigning themselves. And they were able to take off those iron bracelets. And to this day, he has walked normally. It had nothing to do with being a Baptist church. It has nothing to do with whether it's Lourdes or a Buddhist shrine or All Fathers. It's our individual faith that God honors. But, says Ernest, it is the nature of the universe to give us what we are able to take. It cannot give us more. It has given all, but we have not yet accepted the greater gift. So we go through life asking for more, but we haven't yet accepted what we've already been offered. We tend to look at what we don't have with great longing, but we haven't received what's already been given. And then we try to skip steps that might lead to some desired goal. During the years I was working as a musician, occasionally someone would come up to me and they would ask something along these lines. Could you teach me to play Stairway to Heaven? Now, I don't want to learn to read music. I don't want to learn scales and chords or anything. I just want to get that one song. How long would that take? Well, from my perspective, it's long.
Just like anything else, we've got to crawl before we can walk. There are no shortcuts to anything worth having. But anything worth having is possible for us. Yeah, we go about it the right way. Because the infinite is the essence of who we are. The infinite cannot contract, but we are created with the ability to expand. So for each of us, expansion is job one. It's not really important how big our experience of life is today. What's important is that today's experience of life is bigger than yesterday's, and that tomorrow's experience of life is bigger than today's. When we're living that way, we are expanding. We all have more opportunities for growth every single day that we can take advantage of. Every day is an opportunity to learn something about life. We can learn from events. We can learn from our reaction to events. And especially, we can learn from other people. Have you ever looked at life that way? Do you realize that every person on this planet is an important part of the university of life? That we are all teachers and students? Think of it this way. Everyone you meet knows something you don't know. And whether you learn anything from them, depends on your receptiveness to them. It's all there, but accessing it is up to you. In Ernest's words, universal mind contains all knowledge. To it, all things are possible. Should all the wisdom of the universe be poured over us, we should yet receive only that which we are ready to understand. So we can be given the formula for some breakthrough technology, but unless we could comprehend it, it would be useless to us. Ernest began, universal mind contains all knowledge. We humans have communicated with people at a distance, with messages delivered by couriers, by smoke signals, by telegraph, by telephone, and by email. And each of these modes of communication was made possible through the process of human evolution, the steady progression of thought. When we were ready for the smartphone, it appeared. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. When you and I are ready, health, happiness, and prosperity and love will appear. Love becomes to us, or life becomes to us, the particular thing we need. But we believe it becomes to us that particular thing. And what if we don't believe it? Are we out of luck? No, because we can expand our ability to believe by deliberate, conscious mental work. How many would like to know the secret of success? Is it hidden away somewhere? Is it only to be found in advanced metaphysics? Well, listen to Ernest's idea on this. He was talking about affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment, and he said this: a treatment is a statement in the law embodying the concrete idea of our desires and accompanied by an unqualified faith that the law works for us as we work with it. Let us waste no further time looking for the secret of success or the key to happiness. And he went on to say that love rules through law. Love is the divine givingness, and law is the way. Love is spontaneous. Law is automatic and impersonal. So think of love as an infinite warehouse overflowing with limitless amounts of good. And think of law as the delivery system for that good. Love supplies the good stuff, and law will deliver it right to our door. But it's up to us to answer the door. Love points the way, and law makes the way possible. It all works, always, all the time, in accordance with the law. And if our individual efforts are not done within the law, they are wasted efforts. In other words, there's no point in praying that we'll build muscles if we refuse to exercise. That would be against the law. And training thought is more powerful than untrained thought. Brewer told us. Trained thought is more powerful than untrained thought. So the person who gives conscious power to his or her thought should be more careful about what he thinks than one who does not. You know, it's kind of like a person who's very physically strong has to be careful how he uses his strength, because in a heated argument, it's seriously injured or even kill someone. And as you get better at consciously manifesting, you need to be more careful about what you're thinking. Now, treatment, affirmative prayer, is an active thing. It's not daydreaming. It's not sitting and hoping. You heard the saying, God helps those who help themselves. Well, that means that if we know that certain actions are required on our part, we should do them. As Jesus put it, be doers of
the word and not hearers only. So treatments should be definite. If we make vague sounding treatments like a nice life, it'll lead to a sort of a hazy atmosphere of, okay. You know, an artist can mentally picture a most wonderful scene, but unless he gets busy applying paint to the canvas, nothing is created. And we live in a perfectly intelligent universe, a place of order, a system that lacks nothing and has nothing superfluous. It's perfect, whole, and complete. And the science of mind is our attempt to understand intelligence by intelligence. Or as has been said, the thing we're looking for is the thing we're looking with. God is infinite power, intelligence, and wisdom. But God must have an outlet in the same way that that artist must have a medium, paint, clay, marble. And be we butcher, baker, or candlestick maker, we're all God's creative expression. So what it does is twofold. It lives and it gives. It lives and it gives. God lives as you and as me and as the entire universe. God is. And that isness is an activity, just as we are an activity. We co-create ourselves or direct the course of our creation. So it lives and it gives. It gives you what you give it. As you give, so shall you receive. Now, when we quote that, we normally think of giving God our time, our talent, our treasure, but we're always giving God something. Positive thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, or negative thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. And divine law goes to work on whatever we give it, creating equivalent stuff for us. Divine love gives us what we say yes to. It says yes to our yes. As Emmett Fox put it when he was talking about the ways and means of God and its creation, God is God, and I am the by means of. So it lives and gives, and in the process, it does the extraordinary every ordinary day. If you've been here for a while, you know I love stories of so-called ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And a couple of years ago, a woman from Tampa was listed in the Guinness Book of World Records for her achievements in weightlifting. Edith Murray Traina had only been powerlifting for 9 years, and she only started doing it because her friend Carmen, at the age of 68, had been advised to get into an exercise program to fend off osteoporosis. But Carmen didn't want to go to the gym by herself. So Edith went to the gym to help support and encourage her friend Carmen. And a trainer began showing them how to do weightlifting exercises. And, said Edith, before I knew it, there I was, pushing up this bunch of iron I had no use for and no idea of what to do with. Well, 9 years later, they were still both participants in the weightlifting program. Edith said, you don't even think about it when you start out, and all of a sudden, there you are in the middle of something new, different, and really exciting. Lifting weights made her healthier, and, she insisted, lifting is fun. She said, one of the things I've discovered about life in general, if you can't have fun, there's no point in opening your eyes in the morning. So when I open my eyes, I expect it to be a fun day. Something new, something different, something really exciting. How much weight did Edith Power lift? Usually about 150 pounds. Now, you may be thinking, oh, wait a minute, 150 pounds was enough to get into the Guinness Book of World Records? Yes, it was. Edith had 14 grandchildren, 14 great-grandchildren, and 2 great-great-grandchildren. The year she was listed in the Guinness Book, she celebrated her 100th birthday. And her son said, she's always been doing extraordinary things, but to do this kind of thing this late in life is pretty amazing. Edith's trainer at the gym said she's an amazing woman and one of the most mentally tough people I've ever come across. And did Edith have any secret diet? She said no, but she did admit, I make sure that I have Geritol in the morning and I have martinis at night. That keeps me going. It's not magic. It's not supernatural. It is spirit in all its limitless power doing its thing. God is doing extraordinary things every ordinary day. So, we've discussed the thing itself, how it works, and what it does. And that leaves us with the question, how do we use it? Come back next week. Until then, we know that the creative power does indeed do everything. And we only know a tiny fraction of what it does, but we know what it does for us. It responds to our thought. What it does, it gives by living, and it lives by giving. It gives me, me. It gives you, you. And it does it uniquely. It gives you, you, and it gives you everything you need to be a successful you. It's up to us to take advantage of the riches that are already within us. That's what it does. The best part of this series happens next week, so be sure to join us for the thrilling conclusion, How to Use It. Namaste.